Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with a Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel and also the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel, which is where you are right now. WCW Worldwide Wrestling, February 2nd, 1991, is our main focus for this edition. We've got over 1,400 audios available for your listening pleasure in a variety of directions, and ultimately, that is the way that things can go for you. Ultimately, we see fabulous Freebirds, Hayes and Garvin, who are managing to be a major force in the tag team division at the time. Of course, they are back and forth being the U.S. Tag Team Champions. Of course, the majority of the Freebird stuff, 83 through 87 in the world class area. Brad Armstrong makes his way out, and Flying Brian is his tag team partner. So it's starting with a decent match. 91 worldwide seems to have that habit. I haven't necessarily seen too many editions of the show, but enough to know that there's a bunch more, at least one or two really focal matches coming forward here. Anyway, um, Michael Hayes kind of does the Michael Hayes strut early on and gets things going in his general direction as quick and easy as he can. Um, Ultimately, we see a couple of runoffs and a big backdrop by Armstrong. Armstrong then managing a couple of shots right under the run of it, and ultimately we see Armstrong managing to hit a couple Irish whips, um, double double back elbows by um, the wonder that is Brad Armstrong and Flying Brian as a team. Of course, they don't necessarily team regularly. Z-Man, Tom Zink, and Armstrong, or I'm sorry, and Flying Brian did in about 1990 or so. So the history is there for Brian Pillman to have been a major kind of a systematic deal there. Ultimately, we kind of get a uh, kind of a run there and attempted tie up by uh, Jimmy Garvin, and ultimately things continue going on. And again, kind of see that, um, you know, Jimmy Garvin kind of pulls Flying Brian back in, body slam. Slower match from the Freebirds than your average match would be. Hard shots by Hayes, who manages to drop a elbow drop across Flying Brian, trying to keep him at bay. Hot tag eventually off to Brad Armstrong. Armstrong goes pretty nuts. Big back body drop in the section, and then hits drop kick and a secondary one along the way. Irish whip by um, by him, and then ultimately kind of the double noggin knocker spot. Flying Brian comes off with the air Pillman off the, I guess you'd say, top rope, although top strand of rope would be more accurate. Cross body by Brad Armstrong from the top rope, but Michael Hayes comes in with the DDT and manages to get a strike there. Ultimately, that's kind of the way things go, and tie up in the long run along the way there. And so, um, Psycho Sid or Sid Vicious versus Dave Johnson is up next. Sid coming into the territory after being in Memphis for a little bit of time. Basically comes in with a couple of kicks, a punch to the gut, and a power bomb. Sid with a one-handed pin, and Sid is kind of moving towards being a eventual major force. Then we see highlights of Ric Flair defeating Sting for the World Championship, kind of replayed from a live event. And actually, believe it or not, there was a Ric Flair wrestling buddy at the time, which I didn't even know existed. So that is news to me. Sting and Flair joined in progress on the outside of the ring, and ultimately Sting sends him into the ringside table that it is, and then we see Irish whip and a big press slam by the Stinger along the way here, and Sting then manages to get things going in his general direction. Hard kicks by Sting along the way, and manages to get things going for himself. Big attempted Stinger splash in the corner, but that does not go according to plan. Um, and ultimately, Flair manages to attempt to go to the top rope along the way here, and hard shots, and Sting manages to do what he can. Big toss to the back to the inside, and doesn't get only once on that. Kind of tosses Flair from the top rope. Big leaping clothesline by Sting there, and couple of shots along the way. And Sting goes back to the top rope. Of course, Sting having won the championship at Great American Bash 90 in July. Double hard heat-seeking missile type thing by Sting from the top rope. Clothesline by the Stinger, and manages to, get things going there. Flair kicks from the from behind as the referee got clobbered. Sting rolls up. Flair doesn't get all he wants on it. Gets enough, I suppose, but not too terribly much. Meanwhile, the match continues, and Flair kind of flops onto Sting after a kind of a double shoulder tackle, and again, there we go. In the end, ultimately, what that leads to is Ric Flair is a multi-time champion, the most recently defeating Sting. Then we move to some basic stuff here, and the Doom Tag Team, Butch Reed and Ron Simmons, promo cut by Teddy Long for their benefit. Doom goes pretty well to town on Scott Allen and Carl Robinson. Not exactly a super match there, but lots of posing and posturing by Simmons and Reed as the tag team champions, of course, as they are wont to do. And ultimately, that's kind of what's there. Kind of easy kickoffs, basic stuff here, and hard shots by Ron Simmons along the way. Dives forward, does Simmons, and ultimately, double Irish whips, double clothesline along the way there by Simmons, and manages to do everything he can along the way. Tag off between the two men and a flying shoulder tackle, and ultimately we get a 3 count there. And then we go to another highlight match, as often happens here. Arn Anderson and the Z-Man, Tom Zink for the television championship. Notice that the matches are shorter in this run of WCW than later runs. Lots of stuff packed into 44 minutes, otherwise known as a 60-minute program. Anderson, television champion, has said in interviews that in fact is his belt, and the belt that he cherishes most, means the most to him and such. And ultimately, gets things handled in that way. Zink manages to do what he can, and ultimately we see both men jockeying for some semblance of position. Anderson manages to do what he can to keep things going there. Hard shot by Anderson. Anderson sends his man to the outside, and a attempted ring around, kind of using the ring post as a, I don't want to say a battering ram, but kind of pulls him out and ultimately gets where he needs to get there. Um, and Anderson obviously gets groin shotted along the way here. Um, roll through, roll up, as it were, there. And at the end of the day, kind of rolling around with basics. And Tom Zink manages to kind of keep things going in his general direction with basic holds for a minute or two more. Anderson, though, manages to steal a victory using illegal leverage, among other things. Then we go to Tommy Rich and John Peterson. Rich, of course, former NWA champion back in 81 for 4 days. Tommy Rich still seems like a reasonable bet here, although I wouldn't say long-term bet. Anyway, takedown by Rich. Rich with the drop on the arm of a knee drop along the way here. And Rich gets sent off by Peterson. Big arm drag by Rich along the way, and ultimately manages to do some standing up there. And ultimately, Tommy Rich manages to hit a double underhook and a bunch of eventually the Thesz press gets him the victory. Then we move to ugly match as the Steiners against the Master Blasters. That's not looking too good for anybody involved, and there's another full match after that as well, as Mike Wall Street, which I didn't know he used that name in 1991, but apparently he did, against David Isley. But the Master Blasters try to take out the Steiner brothers quickly. Master Blaster, one of them is Kevin Nash. The other is Al Green. Nash and Rick Steiner on the floor. Neckbreaker by Scott on the inside. Scott also hits a belly-to-belly suplex and goes for the Frankensteiner and hits it in very quick fashion for himself and for his brother. Steiners obviously are in quick fashion winners here. Obviously nothing to write home about in that match. Kevin Sullivan continuing to hype his involvement with the Varsity Club, among other things, and shows clips of Sullivan being decisively victorious. Then we go to hype for future programs. Gordon Soley, Tony Schiavone bringing you that. And ultimately, that's kind of where things go as it relates to that being concerned. David Isley against Michael Wall Street is the run there. Alexandra York is where it's at as far as that's concerned, as the manager of Wall Street, doing the York Foundation thing. Wall Street, of course, IRS later, and other various names, but manages to go a couple of arm ringers as it relates to keeping things going, and ultimately Wall Street manages to hook things up as quickly and easily as he can. Kind of a duck under and a huge clothesline by Michael Wall Street along the way here. Doesn't get all he wants, but gets enough as it relates to things. And Michael Wall Street with the double underhook suplex, and then cinches up on his adversary very easily with a reverse chin lock. Don't know why you wouldn't go for the pin after the double underhook, but Wall Street eventually does get a victory here. And that will close us for this February 2nd edition of 1991 here on Worldwide Wrestling. We will be back with more right after this.